Watch a powerful person receive bad news. Watch them absorb an insult, a betrayal, a provocation designed to break them. And notice what does not happen. The hands stay still. In the space where an ordinary person would erupt, there is only a pause. Deliberate, unhurried. That pause is not the absence of feeling. It is the presence of control, and it is one of the most reliable signals of real power that exists in any room, in any century. Because here's the truth that governs every contest between human beings, whether they know it or not. The moment you react emotionally, you hand the other person a map of exactly how to move you. Your anger tells them where you are weak. Your panic tells them what you fear. Your outburst tells them precisely which button. Pressed again will produce the same collapse. You did not intend to reveal these things, but reaction revealed them for you, and now they belong to whoever was watching. Tonight, we descend into one of the coldest disciplines of power, the mastery of your own reactions, not the suppression of feeling, which is a different and lesser thing. The governing of it. Stay until the end, because this is not a lesson about becoming empty. It is a lesson about becoming unreadable, ungovernable, finally, unshakable. Let us begin with the mechanism, because it is more precise. More people understand. Every emotional reaction is information, broadcast involuntarily, at the worst possible moment. When someone provokes you and you flare, you have not defended yourself. You have transmitted a signal, clear, loud, and permanent in the memory of everyone present. You have announced that this particular pressure produces this particular result. And human beings are pattern seekers above all else. They do not forget which words made you lose control. They file it away, quietly, and they return to it whenever they need to move you again. This is why every reactive person is, in the deepest sense, a controlled person. He believes he is being authentic, expressive, honest. What he is actually doing is placing the levers of his own behavior into the hands of anyone willing to pull them. The provocateur does not need to be stronger than him, smarter than him, or better positioned. He only needs to know which words produce the reaction, and the reactive man teaches him that himself. Every time he erupts, to lose your composure is to be handed a weapon, and then to hand it, still warm, to the person aiming at you. Consider anger specifically, because anger is the reaction that feels most like strength, and is, almost always, the clearest broadcast of weakness. When a person becomes angry, they believe they are asserting dominance. But observe what anger actually reveals. It reveals that something reached you, that you could be affected, destabilized, pulled out of your own control by an external force. The angry man is, in that moment, no longer governing himself. The situation is governing him. And everyone watching understands this instinctively, even if they could not put it into words. This is why the person who stays calm, while another rages, appears the stronger of the two, regardless of the argument. The rage says, "You have power over me." The calm says, "Nothing here can move me." In any room where dominance is being silently decided, the calm wins before a word of substance is spoken. There's a deeper layer still. Anger is a loss of information control, but it is also a loss of judgment. The mind in a state of emotional flood does not think clearly. It narrows. It simplifies. It reaches for the fastest release rather than the wisest move. This is why so many decisions made in anger are regretted, and why skilled manipulators do not try to outthink their targets. They try to enrage them. An enraged opponent has effectively disabled his own strategic mind, and will now make the clumsy, exposed, self-defeating moves that fury produces. The provocation was never an insult. It was a tactic, designed to move you from the part of your mind that plans to the part that merely reacts. And it works on nearly everyone, because nearly everyone believes their anger is righteous rather than recognizing it as a leash. Now consider the opposite of the reaction, the thing the powerful use in its place. Not the silence of someone who has nothing to say, but the silence of someone who has chosen not to reveal. This kind of silence does something to other people that words never can. It creates uncertainty. And uncertainty in the mind of an adversary is a slow and spreading poison. When you react, you resolve the tension. The other person now knows where you stand, what you feel, how their move landed. When you stay silent, you leave the tension open, and the human mind cannot tolerate an open loop. It rushes to fill the void. It filled the void. The person who provoked you and received only a level gaze in return does not know what you are thinking. He does not know whether his words landed or missed, whether you are wounded or unbothered, whether you will respond tomorrow with devastating precision or have already dismissed him entirely. And so his own mind begins to work against him, generating doubt, second-guessing, unease. Your silence has recruited his imagination as your ally. You did nothing, and in doing nothing, you made him negotiate against a phantom of his own creation. This is the psychology beneath emotional self-control, and it is worth understanding fully, because without understanding it becomes mere suppression, and suppression fails. Suppression is the white-knuckled effort to hold back a feeling that is still fully present, still running, still leaking out through the jaw and the eyes and the tightness in the voice. It does not work, because the feeling is still governing you. You are simply performing calm over a storm, and people sense the storm. True emotional control is something else entirely. It is the creation of a gap, a deliberate, trained space between the stimulus and the response. In that gap lives everything. The provocation arrives, and instead of the reaction firing automatically, there is a pause. In the pause, the feeling is acknowledged rather than obeyed. And from the pause, a chosen response emerges, rather than a reflexive one. The powerful person still feels the anger, the fear, the sting. He simply does not let the feeling reach the controls. The feeling is a passenger. He remains the driver. Machiavelli understood the strategic dimension of this with unusual clarity. He wrote, in a world where a ruler's visible emotions could be exploited by rivals, where a prince who could be provoked could be led into ruinous wars, where the appearance a leader projected mattered as much as the reality behind it. In the spirit of Machiavelli, the composed exterior is not dishonesty, it is armor. He understood that a man who reveals his every feeling reveals his every vulnerability, and that the ability to remain unreadable was not coldness, but survival. Machiavelli would recognize the modern provocateur immediately. The colleague who needles you in meetings, the rival who baits you online, the negotiator who insults your offer to see if you will flinch. All of them are running the same ancient test. Can this person be moved? And the strategist's answer, delivered through a calm that never breaks, is always the same: number. Bring this into the rooms where you actually live, and watch how the law operates. In workplace conflict, the reactive employee is the one who is managed, maneuvered, and quietly limited. When a colleague undermines him in a meeting, and he flares, defensive, heated, visibly rattled, he has confirmed to the entire room that he can be destabilized, and the undermining will continue because it works. The one who receives the same attack with a calm pause, a measured word, and an unbothered return to the matter at hand does something far more powerful. He denies the attacker the reaction that was the entire point. Over time, the room recalibrates. He becomes the person others are careful around, not because he threatened anyone, but because he could not be moved, and what cannot be moved cannot be managed. In relationships, this discipline is at its most delicate, and it must be understood correctly, because here the goal is never to become cold or withholding toward someone you love. Emotional control in intimacy does not mean hiding your feelings from your partner. It means not being hijacked by them in the moments that matter most. Couple who escalates every disagreement into a war of reactions. Each provocation answered by a larger provocation. Each wound repaid with a deeper one. Destroys the very thing they are fighting to protect. The person who can feel the surge of anger in a conflict and still choose his words, who can pause instead of striking back, who does not let a moment of heat inflict a permanent injury, is not less honest. He is more in control of the outcome. In love, the reactive lose, the arguments they win, because the damage of the reaction outlasts the victory of the point. In business negotiation, emotional control is nearly the whole game. Every experienced negotiator watches for the tell, the flash of eagerness, the flicker of offense, the too quick response that reveals where the other party's real pressure lies. The one who cannot control his reactions has already surrendered his position. He shows his excitement at a good offer and loses his leverage. He shows his offense at a low one and reveals his floor. He fills every silence, unable to bear the tension, and gives away information with each word. The master negotiator does the opposite. He receives every number with the same unreadable calm. He lets silences stretch until the other side, unable to tolerate the void, negotiates against themselves. His composure is not politeness. It is a weapon, and it is a weapon, and it is often the most powerful one at the table. In the arena of social manipulation, understanding this protects you completely. The manipulator's entire method depends on producing an emotional reaction in you. Guilt, anger, fear, the desperate desire for their approval. Because a person in the grip of an emotion is a person who can be steered. The guilt tripper needs you to feel guilty. The provoker needs you to lose your temper. The one who plays on your insecurity needs you to feel small. Remove the reaction, and you remove their entire mechanism. The manipulator faced with genuine calm is a locksmith whose key no longer fits the lock. He can push and find nothing to catch on. This is why emotional self-mastery is not merely a tool of power. It is a form of immunity. History offers the pattern again and again. Calm defeating aggression, composure outlasting fury. Consider the ancient confrontation between the philosopher and the tyrant, the recurring scene, real and legendary alike, in which a ruler rages and threatens death, and the condemned man responds with a serenity that unnerves the entire court. The tyrant has all the physical power, and yet loses the deeper contest, because his rage reveals that he can be disturbed, while the calm of the condemned reveals that he cannot. The one who was supposedly powerless holds the only thing that could not be taken. Consider the leaders remembered for grace under pressure. Those who, in moments of crisis, refused to be baited into the panic or fury their opponents were counting on, and who found that their steadiness itself became a source of authority. And consider the countless generals and statesmen whose aggressive emotional opponents defeated themselves, provoked into premature attacks, into rash decisions, into the exposed and clumsy moves that fury always produces. Calm strategists did not always have to win. They only had to wait for the emotional one to lose. In politics, this dynamic is visible to anyone who watches carefully. The figure who can be provoked into an angry outburst has revealed a vulnerability that would be exploited relentlessly, because a public loss of composure is remembered long after the substance of any argument is forgotten. The most durable political operators, across every ideology and era, share a certain unshakable calm under attack, an ability to absorb hostility without visible disturbance that reads to the watching public as strength. The one who loses his temper in front of a crowd has, in a single moment, told everyone watching that he can be broken, and that knowledge, once given, is never taken back. So the question becomes practical. How does a person actually build this? Not through suppression, which fails, but through the training of the gap between stimulus and response. It begins with a single discipline, practiced relentlessly, to pause. When provocation arrives and you feel the reaction rising, the heat in the chest, the surge toward the mouth, you do one thing before anything else. You wait, one breath, one deliberate beat of silence. This seems small, and it is the whole war. In that single pause, the automatic reaction loses its grip, and the possibility of a chosen response is born. The provocateur is watching for the flinch, timing his attack to your reflex. Insert a pause, and you have broken his timing entirely. Practice this in small moments, when the stakes are low, until it becomes the shape of your nervous system, so that when the moment of real pressure comes, the pause is already yours. It requires, as well, a reframing of the provocation itself. When you understand that an insult is often a test rather than a truth, that a jab is frequently a probe designed to measure your control, the emotional charge begins to drain from it. The person trying to enrage you is showing you their strategy, and once you see the strategy, the insult becomes almost informative rather than wounding. You are no longer the target of an attack. You are the observer of a tactic. An observer does not flinch. It demands that you feel the emotion fully, in private, rather than pretending it does not exist. This is the difference between control and denial. The controlled person is not a man with no anger. He is a man who has somewhere to put it. He acknowledges the feeling, lets it move through him in a space where it costs him nothing, and refuses only to let it govern his behavior in the moment that matters. Denial festers and eventually erupts. Control processes and passes. The goal is never to become a person who feels nothing. It is to become a person whose feelings are his own, held privately, expressed by choice, and it rests, finally, on a foundation that has nothing to do with any single interaction, a self so grounded that other people's provocations cannot reach the core. The person who is destabilized by every insult is a person whose sense of worth is stored outside himself, where anyone can disturb it. The person who has built his worth on his own foundation meets the same insult and finds it lands on nothing, because the thing it was aimed at is not available to be wounded. Emotional control, at its deepest level, is not a technique at all. It is the natural expression of a self that no longer needs the approval, the fairness, or the good behavior of others in order to remain intact. Now understand what stands at the end of this discipline, because it is easy to mistake and essential to see clearly. The person who never reacts emotionally is not empty, not cold, not dead to the world. He feels as deeply as anyone, often more, because he has stopped spending his emotional energy on performance and reaction, and kept it for what matters. What separates him is not the absence of feeling. It is that his feelings no longer leak out to be used against him. He has become unreadable, and the unreadable cannot be manipulated. He has become ungovernable, and the ungovernable cannot be controlled. He has become unshakable, and the unshakable cannot be provoked into the mistakes that destroy the reactive. And this is the secret that the phrase self-mastery points to, but rarely explains. The mastery of others always begins with the mastery of the self, because every attempt to control you is, at bottom, an attempt to trigger a reaction in you. Remove your controllable reactions, and you remove every handle the world had on you. The person who governs his own inner state has quietly stepped outside the reach of nearly every form of manipulation that moves ordinary human beings. He cannot be baited, cannot be rushed, cannot be enraged into folly or frightened into surrender. He sits in the center of every storm, watching the reactive exhaust and expose themselves, and he waits. Calm, unreadable, in complete possession of the one territory that was always the source of all the others. Master the storm inside you first. Learn the pause. Feel everything, reveal nothing you have not chosen to reveal. And let your silence do the work your outbursts never could. The world is full of people who can be moved by a single well-placed word. Become the one who cannot, and you will have taken the first and most important step toward moving everything else. Because in the end, the throne of all power is not a position, a title, or a fortune. It is the quiet, unshakable command of your own reactions. Take that throne, and no one can take anything else from you without your consent.